Welcome to Athlete Complete, where we host raw and open conversations about the details that impact performance from current and former professional athletes for parents, players, coaches, and fans. Spencer, welcome to the shit show.
I'm going to feel right at home. Thank you for having me.
We'll start with what I think is going to be an excellent tradition, which is to ask you what your nicknames are. We're going to go back to like club soccer. What were your nicknames going way back to when you were a kid or outside of soccer? What do people call you?
I guess way back, like Booty was early days nickname, like when I was a toddler, young kid, because I had a big ass belly and a big ass booty. So Booty was early days. Transition into playing. Spenny has been a really popular nickname throughout my playing career. Not really an American thing, but it came from UK teammates and coaches that I had, and apparently they just throw NY on whatever the first 4 or 5 letters of your first name is. So Spenny is one. Speenus was a nickname that I was given at UW. It was Spee Rich, short for Spencer Richey, which turned into Speenus by some of the upperclassmen when I first got to UW. So when you've been in sports long enough, you get, a bunch of crazy nicknames, some appropriate, some not. Some are cool, some are meant to roast you. So I think that's just the way sports goes,
The Spend 15.
Spend 15. So
yeah, write that down.
It's good. I think more the more teammates and the more relationships you build, the more nicknames you have with different groups of people. So it's a cool part of sports. And, I think Spencer is probably my most common name these days, though. I'm getting older. Maybe that's why. So
Is that a thing? Is it a thing to have the nicknames kind of fall off as you become a more distinguished member of society? Like, I don't know. Is that noticeable?
Maybe a little bit. I think it's the equivalent of like somebody named William and they transition from Willie to Will to Bill as they get older. I think the older you get, it's, I'm one of the older guys on my team now, for example, being 32. I think there's only 2 or 3 guys older than me, but there's 17, 18-year-old kids on the team. So there's a pretty big age gap, and those guys try to keep me young, but it's getting more challenging by the year.
Just become old dad balls, Spencer,
I know.
over time.
I know. It's happened quick, man. It's happened quick. It felt like yesterday I was one of the young bucks, and now I'm one of the seasoned vets. So
I know what that's like. Rich is Rich Reese, Spencer's college coach. He's sending me clients to work with, goalkeepers, and they text me and they're like, "Hey, Drago, hoping to look for a session." And these are kids I haven't met before, so I don't even know if they know what my name is. They're just calling me Drago in text. These are 15, 16-year-olds. Yeah. It works.
I like that. Yeah. Before we hit the record button, we were talking about schedules. We're talking about just how enduring it takes to last, and the contrast, the MLS schedule with the MLB schedule. Obviously, James, you're traveling everywhere all the time. 3 game series here, and then you get a day off and another 3 game series. But it's a little bit more condensed, and you actually have like a proper off season. And Spencer, you were saying that like sometimes it's 10 and a half months, 11 months, based on playoffs and stuff like that. Maybe a great place to start off is, how do you, how important is that off season when it's so condensed? Like, do you try to pack as much stuff into that as possible? And also with the length of the season that it is, what's your downtime look like?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think the answer to that will vary a lot depending on the athlete, the age of the athlete, how long that season actually was for you. Usually, the last couple of years, report date is typically mid-January, the 10th to the 15th, and then with the cup final coming around December 10th to December 12th. So it can be a full 11 months if you go start to finish. If it was an example of that, I haven't had the opportunity to play in a cup final, unfortunately, but just from speaking with some guys that I used to play with that have, that 1 month is largely, you're not doing shit. That's a time for mental recovery, to get away from the game, for physical recovery. Almost anyone come that time of the year is dealing with something, if not multiple things. So that 1 month in that example would be largely focused on, recovery, both physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever you got to do to get recharged come preseason. And I know a lot of teams will specifically tell guys, like, do not do this, do not do that, don't touch a ball, don't do cardio. It's a little bit in our nature to want to be, after a week or something, to get moving a little bit. But, just with the shortened window, I think it does allow you throughout the course of the year to push a little bit more during the season, maybe contrary to, a baseball schedule when it is just games. So, if it is a Saturday to Saturday game schedule during the week and you don't play midweek, maybe that's an opportunity on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, especially if you're not, playing a bunch of minutes or, whatever the case is, to maybe push more in earlier parts of the week when you have those opportunities during the season. But I think, like anything, it's probably the same as James will say. It's about finding that right balance, right? Of, when you can push it, when you got to pull back, when is recovery and sleep and nutrition, the more important focus of your performance, and when is there an opportunity to, when you can push it in the gym, push it on the field, some of your fitness based stuff. And it's just about finding that right balance. And the longer you play, the better you get at it, the more knowledgeable you get. But, I'm 32, 10 years in now, and I'm still learning things about the process and, what suits me best. So that's kind of what makes it fun, is you never quite have it figured out. And, there's always room for improvement.
How's that for you, James? Do you purposefully not pick up a baseball in the off season?
No, I'll pick up a baseball probably starting like Thanksgiving time, because we're done end of September, early October. If you're in the postseason, you're playing through October. But if, like, I don't make the postseason, usually it's like you take 4 weeks off. So kind of the same, almost a month, like 3-4 weeks off of just doing nothing, recovery, being a normal guy. I feel like that's really important, is to kind of like take that time just for your, like you said, like Spencer said, for like your mind, your body, everything, just to be like a normal person for a little bit. And then you get back to training, because we've got another couple months, we've got December, January, and then spring training starts mid-February. So we kind of start to build our bodies back up and get some strength, because during the season, especially for like positional players who are playing every day, like they don't really work out as much during the season. So they have to build up a bit of a base, because during the season, you're going to lose strength, you're going to break down. Starting pitchers, for me, like I work out between starts because I pitch every 6 days now. So I kind of have a routine, where I'll work out and stuff and throw, but you'll still, over a long season, kind of like break down. You're not lifting as much weight because you're having to, be ready for your pitch day. So it's definitely a balance. And, like Spencer was saying, as I've gone in my career, I've kind of learned to like listen to my body, and that's really hard to do as a young player. I know for me it was anyway. I think I pushed like really hard, because I wanted to be better. I wanted to be so good, and I would push. And I think that's what got me hurt, a lot of times, was like I was pushing too hard instead of giving my body that time for the recovery that it needed. And it was telling me, I just wasn't listening. I think as I've gotten older, I'm kind of learning to listen to my body better.
I know Ben does an aggressive head nod when you talk about pushing too hard.
Yeah, he knows me pretty well.
Ben, like when it comes to, because here's the question I think a lot of people have who are sports fans is, all right, so you're listening to your body, but you're also having to take the direction from like the strength coach or fitness coach or positional coach. Like, how do you, I don't know. I'm curious about like, okay, I know me better than anybody else, but I'm also expected to recover in their way or this way. Ben, what do you say to like, how do you find that balance, or how do you help players find that balance between like, yeah, like you know that you need to take a couple of days off and just rest versus the input that you're getting from coaches or organizations where they're like, no, you need to go do some light training today.
Well, first off, I think just based off how Spencer and James both chose to answer that question, you can tell that they're veterans, you know, taking care of their body, taking care of their mind, taking care of their spirit, getting away from things. I never got to that point in my career. I mean, the things that Spencer touched on, I was like, no, fuck that. I needed work. I never had a contract in place, so my mindset was, okay, off season means I can get better now, so I need to keep grinding here. So I never took that time off, which, I've done a lot of, studying and research on the physical side of things, but for me, that tells me it's a big psychological issue first, and an inability to adapt psychologically to whatever that thing was I was doing, the sport. So the fact that they're at this point is pretty massive. Did Sean disappear?
Yeah.
He said,
I think he went, maybe he's putting pants on. Who knows?
He just dipped out. I wonder if he got a little burn on his nuts. How's everybody's feed looking?
Mine's a little fuzzy. Like when I look at myself in my little window, like I'm clear, but you two are a little fuzzy.
Yeah,
Mine's the same. Sean's really clear, but you guys are a little fuzzy on mine.
Yeah, it'll render afterward, and the video quality will be fine when it like catches up on the back end. I'm pretty sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Where'd you go? What just happened?
I heard a bang up there. I needed to go shake a finger real quick. As one does.
Yeah. So you might have to revamp that question because I don't remember what you said.
Yeah. Well, so how do you play that balance between the pressures of the organization or even the pressures that you put on yourself and knowing your body well enough, knowing your mind well enough to like really take a break,
Oh yeah.
How do you rectify the expectation versus what you know is right for you as an athlete?
Yeah, that's a super tricky and individualistic kind of question, right? Again, just to play off my own history here, when I made it into Major League Soccer, like fighting and clawing my way in there, I said that I've overachieved by getting there, but I underachieved once I was there because I refused to switch off mentally the things I was doing that got me there, which was grinding away. And I was literally grinding away at my body and my emotional well-being while I was doing all that stuff with enough reflection now looking back. So, it's tricky. Like you look at someone like Spencer, you look at someone like James, who has have a decade under their belt and what they're doing. You can trust to a certain degree their assessment of where they're at. Younger guys, mentally, you might need to hold their hand a little bit and guide them, or really do a lot of thorough investigating of what kind of answers are they giving you when you ask them how they're feeling. Like, is it choreographed? Is it? Are they telling you what they think you want to hear? Are they able to even tap into a vulnerable side of themselves and give you an accurate description of where they're at, whether that is mentally, that is physically, right? The hardest thing to do for an athlete is to switch off and relax, because that gets associated with not working very hard or you're being lazy, and that's couldn't be further from the truth. It's what your body needs to actually grow and adapt and get better. But you're not trained that way from a very young age, so it's a tricky. They're tricky waters to navigate, and it's such an individualistic thing. And in the industry I'm in now, I have worked with veterans, obviously, for a long time. I've worked with baseball players that have got several years under their belt, and they still give choreographed answers. They still don't know how to switch off. They still, it can be a heartbreaking thing to watch, because you can see things starting to crack a little bit, and you can see it. And then what the psyche does is, well, I'm going to grab on harder and keep fighting and get my way through this. And they're at a point where the body's keeping score and they just can't do it anymore. So it's such a tough thing to get someone who's supposed to be strong, unbreakable, all the words that describe an athlete: to be vulnerable, feel safe, really explain how you're feeling, really explain what's going on in your life, and not see that as a weakness.
How often do you get when you're working with somebody and you say, hey, how are you? How's your body? How you feeling? And you get an answer like this. Well, it's been a long season, and I just been doing my best out there, trying to really keep myself balanced. Just want to thank my teammates and my coaches for support. Like, is it like that canned? I mean,
Yeah, and
get into
I've
that mode.
I have systems in place for that, and when I get an answer like that, I do further up investigative questions. A lot of times, I'll share something about myself on a vulnerable level, to see if I can get things on an even playing field. And if they're not willing to go there, I just take note of that. They're not willing to go there yet. And that is a process to get people to go there. And I think that's why I do have success with what I'm doing, is I can get people to get on that level. And when we do get on that level, then we can actually make real serious progress to where we want to go.
I think it's tough for players because, like, if you admit that to someone else, you're admitting it to yourself too, and there's like that anxiety of like, if I stop pushing, someone else is going to catch up. I don't know if it's the same thing for you, Spencer, but it's like, I've always like pushed, wanted to be like the best. That was kind of like when I was young, like that was my driver. It's like, I wanted to be the best player, the best pitcher in the league, that whole thing, and I mean, the anxiety that comes with like having to like push yourself so hard and like not admit that you're tired or you're burnt out or whatever, it can be tough, and you don't want to admit that to anybody because then it makes it real. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the other side of the coin as well is a lot of times the staff and the coaches or whatever have that expectation as well of younger players, that you push through injuries, you don't need a day off, you're young, like you got to earn your stripes. And so there's both sides of it, of the athlete feels that almost like guilt if they're not always pushing because they want to be the best and they don't see the importance of recovery. And on the other side of it, you have the coaches or the performance staff or whatever having that kind of dated outlook of performance of young players, and that they need to push. And so you put those together and it's a recipe for someone's body to break down, someone's mind to break down earlier in their career, so it's definitely an area of need, both of awareness from the athlete side, but also, awareness and knowledge on the professional side to be able to, help these young athletes realize when they're overworked, realize when they're overstimulated, they need a break, and, having those two groups of people work together to get the best outcome.
Spencer, you're lagging a little bit, and I don't know.
Let me move my router a little closer, quick.
Yeah,
real quick.
You know what's
you lagged a couple of times through that response.
Are there methods to iron this shit out? Because Brad was having that same problem too.
My router is pretty close. It's only like 20 feet from me.
Okay. It might have actually captured that on your end, and then when it buffers afterward, it might clean that up. But
okay. I can repeat if we need.
I can do some magic in post production to clean that up. I think we got the gist of it.
Okay.
One thing that I'm curious about is like,
can I piggyback off that real quick?
Yeah.
I think one of the big struggles with young guys, and I'm seeing it with the team I coach now, and I work with a lot of those type of athletes. The vulnerability game that can really take your performance to a whole nother level works if you have one foundational piece in play, and that's what real hard work looks like, and real hard work with the right standard, and you can achieve that. I think when you play the vulnerability game and you want guys to listen to their bodies, and you want to listen to their mind, their spirit, their heart, and they could use that as ammunition or a crutch to not get to a level that they want to get to. They know how to work hard, but not the right kind of hard that's going to get you to the spot that you want to get to if you want to be a pro. And that's where it gets tricky, because I see that with a team I coach now, and it's all college guys, and they all have pro ambitions, and it's you kind of give them that leash and like, hey, you can communicate with me, we can have open conversations, and they utilize it, but without doing that foundational piece first. Like, there's no trust that you can be vulnerable, listen to your body, and work hard when we need to work hard. It's a there. Do you know what I mean, James? I mean, I see you shaking your head.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, I was just thinking like, work ethic is learned. I think that there is a piece to young guys. Like, you have to learn like how hard you can work, because like getting to be a professional athlete is not easy, like you have to push yourself beyond, and you have to kind of like be able to push yourself to a certain point to know where that end is, to know where it starts to go the other way. Because you kind of have to live on that line, to be able to push yourself hard enough to be a pro athlete, but then also like give yourself the recovery. But if you never push yourself to that line to know, how hard can you push yourself, then you're not going to, most of us are not going to be able to work hard enough to be a professional athlete. Now, there's some that are just so talented that, don't really have to maybe work as hard as the others. But those guys are very few and far between,
And I work with kids who, from a technical skill standpoint, way beyond my years. And you should see these kids. If our Western team played some of these kids just from like their ability, fuck, we'd get crushed. They're so good. But from a mentality standpoint, I will absolutely fucking kill them. And I say that, and I actually feel stuff right now saying that. Like, no problem. I will beat you. I will beat you to the ground, and I know how to do that. That's where there's a big difference, because you need a little bit of both. And not all the time, but you need to know when to apply that when you need to. Like Spencer, when we train with college kids in the off season, you're chill, you're working into things, but you have that level when you need to. I'm going to gear up here, and I'm going to gear up, and then mentally you're going to focus a little bit more than they can focus. You're going to do things a little bit different, percentage points more, and you're going to fucking kill.
Yeah, I think it's about being efficient with it, right? Like all this, in terms of when to push, when to not push. I think, again, the older you get, the more confidence you have and your ability to kind of flip the switch a little bit, the more confidence you have of knowing that, did I do enough work today to sustain or, improve, and not like, oh, I need to keep doing more and more and more, when maybe that's not efficient output of what you're going to get in your return, right? So I think that's something that comes with experience the longer you play, is, knowing when you got to ease into a warm up or a training session, when is it time to go, when are you need to be at your optimal performance. And, I think it helps eliminate some of that wasteful, output that ends up wearing on you. And the more efficient you can be with, the work that you put into something and how it's going to help your performance, I think helps you have a long and healthy career.
And that is the massive problem today with youth sports.
Yeah.
It's because the kids are being guided and they don't have that insight that you just had. It's all push, more, without that refined outlook on the whole thing. And the kids are getting washed up, chewed out, mentally destroyed, burnt out at young ages because they don't have that.
Yeah. It's a quality over quantity thing at the end of the day, right? And sometimes you do need the quantity. Like, don't get me wrong. It's not always like a less is more situation. Sometimes you do need the reps. Like, sometimes there is specific things within your craft or your skill set that like you do need to spend a shit ton of reps on. But in large part, the quality over quantity, sort of strategy about it is probably going to be the most beneficial in the long run.
Well, it reveals, just in my experience, knowing 11-year-old travel baseball players, friends of the family who are playing, a tournament every weekend in the summer. Their baseball leagues are kind of all year long. They're playing indoor. They've got batting coaches. They've got, throwing mechanic coaches at 11 years old. And with soccer, the growth of the sort of club model, which makes people a bunch of money, and there's an A, B, C, D, and E team that you're trying out for at 8 years old. Like, it's just so different than it was, I think, when we were growing up. And the people in charge who are expected to coach and lead, like they don't take as much care with young, like really young athletes. They don't care as much. Well, I'm speaking broadly and out of school a little bit here, but they don't care as much about the physical health and the mental health of these kids. And like, to Ben's point, and you've seen this so much, Ben, kids with like overuse injuries at 17, or a kid who needs Tommy John surgery at 18 because he throws like 3 times as much as he can. I think that there's a lack of accountability, I think, from a lot of youth sports organizations that aren't doing what's best for the kid. Do you guys agree with me?
Yeah.
I do it, and to kind of change the messaging. It's not like the coaches don't care, but if they're coaching 4 teams, if they're coaching 80 kids, how can you? And they have their own life too, and they bring their own stresses to things. Like it almost just becomes a bandwidth thing, right? So yeah, at the expense of the kids at the end of the day as well. Like, so the way I mean, Taylor Twellman brings this up a lot, that youth sports is a professional business now because of the money that's involved. And so they're pumping in more kids and they're pumping in more stuff. It's going to cheapen the product. It's going to cheapen what the sport's about, because they have to cater to this stuff. I mean, Spencer had a really interesting youth development. I mean, he went to residency in Bradenton. I mean,
The
I don't know how they
ultimate
did it there.
pay-to-play situation.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I was on a scholarship, but I mean, people know IMG. I think it just got sold for like a couple billion to some Hong Kong firm of this entire high school campus of kids paying $100,000 a year to attend there. Fortunately, we were part of the U.S. soccer portion, so Nike was paying for us. But I mean, that's probably the craziest example of it. And especially then, I was there 17 years ago, and it was kind of a dumpy campus, largely tennis with some basketball, soccer. I think baseball was recently starting out down there. Now we go down there for preseason, and it is insane, man. It's not the most top universities in the country. It's nuts.
Yeah, I've heard that place is wild.
You were gonna kind of piggyback on what Ben said a minute ago.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, what was Ben saying a minute ago? Remind me, what was his point? What was he talking about?
Saying coaches have 4 teams. It's a professional business. It's maybe not that they're trying to like grind young athletes' bones to dust, but it's just maybe a product of the business.
Yeah, I think that they're trying to help those kids find that line too, and I think the thing is, when, like Ben's saying, when you got 80 kids, there's 80 different lines, so like it's really hard to I think handle things so individually, and like, because heck, in like pro now, at the Dodgers, like we've got 3 strength coaches, freaking like 6 trainers, kind of thing. So you've got all kinds of people working really hard to figure out how hard you can push one guy, what one guy needs, that kind of thing. Whereas youth sports, you've got two or 3 coaches that are dads, that are just kind of doing this on the side kind of thing. And it's like, how are they supposed to know how hard to push a kid? That sort of thing. But, with the money coming into these sports now, and if they're going to treat it this way, then they are going to have to get a little bit more. They have to spend some more money, I think, on, having people to watch that stuff. Like, they're going to have a trainer. They're going to have a strength coach, if they're going to have this crazy of a schedule and have it be that intense. I think there's other things that come with that are needed. Like in pro sports now, I don't know what it's like in soccer, but we have like a mental skills coach, now, and that's just sort of starting in professional leagues. But like that's something that's probably going to be needed at the lower levels now too. You get into youth sports, they're going to need to have somebody they can talk to on a team to help them. I think that we'll get there eventually. I think it's probably going to take a while for it to trickle down to youth sports, but I think that the longer we wait on that kind of stuff, the more detrimental things we're going to see happening with youth kids in sports. It's going to get worse before it gets better, I think.
I think anybody listening right now is going to be asking the question, what the hell is a mental skills coach? Any casual listeners like, well, what is it, like kumbaya and hand holding? Like, what does a mental skill coach actually do?
Yeah, so I mean, mental skills coach is basically like I think most of the ones in the major leagues are sports psychologists. They've gone to school for sports psychology, and they can help you work through difficulties in your sport, whether you're having a hard time or you're injured or you're just tired or you're working through some anxiety, that sort of thing. Like you can just have a conversation with them, and they can help you get through that stuff. I think kids go through a lot, especially, high school kids. Just being in high school is hard enough. And then you're dealing with working through a sport and stuff like that. Like there's a lot going on in people's lives, and you have to balance, everything. Um, as far as these kids working so hard and working around the clock on their sport, I think that it's really important to still be a kid, because I look back on all the things that I've given up to be, a pro athlete, and I look back on all the things that I've missed, with my friends and family and stuff like that, and I think that it's important to take, 2 weeks in the summer to like go on vacation with your family or friends, or just like be a normal kid, because you don't want to completely miss that stuff, because eventually you'll look back and kind of feel like you missed something. We only get one go around this thing, and I think that it's important to try and strike a balance when you're pushing so hard at a young age to be a professional athlete.
Who's got it figured out? We talked about this in our last conversation around, there's some athletes they're just talented. They don't have to work quite as hard. They've got it all. They're investing in real estate and they're making the all-star game, and their crypto is crushing and they dress well. Like there's just people like that in the world. But I'm curious about this, like what it takes and how you can develop that for yourself, that ability to perform at a high level and also be a grounded, down to earth person. Like, is that rare? Maybe Spencer, James, like is that person's, that archetype of the sort of, superior athlete who also is a good dude and highly organized and also is an excellent fly fisher. Like, is that a unique thing?
I'll let you go, Spencer.
Yeah, I would say yes. I think there's certainly tons and tons of guys that I've played with that are both great players and great dudes. But I think the person that you see on Instagram who's got the crypto and real estate and fly fishing and a hot wife or husband and, like, it's never as perfect as it seems. Like, I feel very fortunate, and that's my opinion. I feel very fortunate for the life that I have, my family, my soccer career, some of the off-field stuff I have going on, but it's never as good as it seems. Everyone has shit going on, right? Like, so I think, when in this era of social media, especially over the last 10 years, you see the pro athletes and they're posting the pictures and the lifestyle and the content and this and that. I think, yeah, it's very easy for someone online to make their life seem perfect. But I think 99% of the time, everyone's got shit going on, whether that's just with your partner, family stuff, financial stuff, mental health stuff. I think that, no one has it all figured out. That I know for sure. No one's got it all figured out. Everyone, is kind of trying to figure it out as they go. And I think, that's the beauty of this whole, again, as James said, we only get one go around at this thing, right? And, I'm a big believer in, the joys in the journey, the joys in the climb. And, it's all about just trying to do your best each day, each week, each month, and, try to be a better friend, a better athlete, a better partner. And, if you can do that on a consistent basis, then I think, you're going to end up living a pretty good life.
Agreed.
I think that's important context, because to give everything to your sport to be the best at it, which is what everyone wanted to do or wants to do or whatever, it comes at a cost of something else in your life. You only have so much energy to give to one thing without it affecting something else, right? So if anyone says they have it all together, that's grade bullshit. Like, it's not, there's a math equation here that doesn't add up. It's not possible.
For sure.
Right. There are certain people, and I think Spencer falls in this category really, really well, is you too, James, seeking out things that do give you juice that are not your sport, to give you more energy, to get your attention away from what you're doing all the time. That type of stuff does round you out really well, I think. I didn't have that. I was all in one thing, and I couldn't fathom anything else. And I think that can be a destructive behavior. So I think what you're looking for when you have high performance, it's high performance at your craft, but then you've really thoughtfully sought out other energy sources and things that reboot your system without it being a detriment to your sport. Does that make sense, what I'm getting at? Like, you have to explore the other stuff. But the idea of being a perfectly well-balanced anything, you're looking at, as they alluded to, an image of something, and you're like, wow, this guy's got it figured out. But underneath the skin, the thoughts going on and different things, everyone's got stuff. Like, I work with world champion CrossFit people. They're jacked, but if you start peeling their skin away and you look at their joints and things going on underneath there, they're messed up. Like, every athlete has stuff going on underneath their skin that you don't see. You see the external side of everything, whether it's mentally, physically, spiritually. You don't see underneath everything, and everyone's got a jumbled mess in there that they're trying to just iron out.
Yeah.
James, what are some of your things, James? What are some of the things that you have in your life that balance out the high performance of baseball?
Well, I was just going to say, like, man, for a long time in my career, I wasn't like that. Like, I was very, like, kind of blinders on, one focus. All I cared about was being the best baseball player I could be, and, like, I was just locked in on that. Every decision revolved around, my baseball and what I could do, what I couldn't do, my training, stuff like that. It was like almost like obsessive, and it's taken me a long time to realize, to find that balance, and it's hard to find a balance, because there's that anxiety that you deal with your sport, and, like, you want to keep playing, you want to be the best you can be, and I think also you get praise and you get love from being a good baseball player, soccer player. Like, that's how you get value. You feel value about yourself is from, like, being a good athlete. So you put so much into that. And then I think it was probably for me, like, when I had my Tommy John, I started kind of doing some therapy, on myself. And, I would talk to a therapist and kind of start working on myself, and really kind of realize, like, how much of that I was doing. And, now I'm trying to find more of a balance of, getting that rest and recovery, and, having other things. And now I've got kids, so, I mean, most of my time goes to them. Like, when I'm home, I'm dad, and I'm playing catch or kicking the soccer ball with my son, or, my daughter's really young, feeding her, playing with her, whatever, spending time with my wife. I think there was a lot of years there where I kind of didn't give my wife a lot of attention, because I was just, like, so focused on baseball that I didn't really give her the time that she deserved to connect with her and stuff like that. So I think now I'm really just focused on those things when I'm away from the ballpark and not bringing the game home with me. That was a tough one for me to get to, was to like be able to leave baseball like at the baseball field. So when I'm at home and hanging out with like my wife or my kids, I'm not like thinking about, oh man, that, what do I have to do today? Or like thinking about my game, the game before, the one that's coming up, feeling anxiety about the next time I have to pitch or whatever. Um, that's just I think takes practice and takes I think everyone needs help getting there. You know.
I want to pick at that a little bit. Because I'm curious here, right? Because
Yeah.
I obviously the importance of what a family brings to you and how it enriches your life. It's like they're actually the most important thing, right? And that makes total sense to me. It resonates. The question that I have though is, when you're home and your dad, you're still giving of yourself. You're still like, I mean, that is a form of self-care. That is a form of enrichment, but you're still like fielding questions, changing diapers, cooking dinner, taking the garbage out, fixing the gutters, doing all this stuff. You're still giving of yourself. And so I'm curious if there is a place, or if there's even hours in the day for you to like play some poker or golf, or have some time for that's just for you, above and beyond being there with your family.
Uh, Man, not a lot. It's it's a grind, dude. I mean, it's like I wake up at 7 a.m. and my son wakes up at 7. My daughter's usually up at 6:45, 7. Like it's go time, dude. Like I'll get my coffee in as my son's watching a little bit of TV on my lap, and then it's like change his diaper and we're playing. And then then I'll go to the field at 1:30, and I'm home at 11, and I go to bed at 11:30, and I'm up at 7 again. And it's kind of a cycle. When I'm on the road, usually I get a bit more time. Like right now I'm on the road, and doing stuff like this, calling friends, just kind of going out and getting a coffee, doing some shopping, something like that, like walking around whatever city I'm in. Is a little bit of downtime in the off season. Obviously you get a lot more downtime in the off season. I like to fish, um, just stuff like that. I think you kind of strike a balance, but I don't have it all figured out. Like I'm not perfect. I think like I've struggled, throughout my life, kind of like trying to find like a hobby, and like having something else. And, it's been a tough one for me. I'm not really like, I don't collect cards or like, whatever coins or do anything. I'm not a big golfer. I can see myself at some point getting into golf, but like, again, I feel like I'm still giving a lot of myself to baseball, and like a lot of my away time from the family is just like all baseball, whether it's like a recovery thing. And I enjoy some of that, like, the working out I enjoy. I like going into like going to a sauna, doing going cold tub, stuff like that. Like that's like enjoyable for me, recovery for me, but it's still like kind of tied to baseball, in my body. Um, but I definitely, don't have it all figured out. That's for sure.
Same question for you, Spencer. What, family man, entrepreneur on the side, long seasons, travel, how do you make time, find time for hobbies that actually enrich you, where you're not just giving of yourself?
Yeah, I think it changes a lot throughout the year too, to James's point, depending on, what point of the season you're in. I think that's probably the main driver of free time, time for yourself, time for family, because obviously, it's your job. And when you gotta show up and be places, you gotta be there. So I think in season, it's tough to find that balance. My wife and I always talk about that, how, if you want to cook healthy, she wants to, get her workout time. She works full time. I have my, soccer thing. It's tough to do it all, to be social, to stay in touch with friends, leave time for a date night, go get a drink every once in a while. Like, it is damn near impossible, maybe impossible, to do all of those things, And I think, kind of touching on what we said earlier, like, people who market themselves of having it all together, I just don't think that, I just don't know if it's possible to be able to fully optimize every area of your life. It's just hard. And so I think you just have to be really, intentional about trying to find time for yourself, trying to find time for a date night, finding time to, hone in on your kids and have, your undivided attention with them. And again, I think it's, kind of been a theme of this episode, but it's just about doing your best, man, to find the best balance that works for you and your family. And just remembering what's important, at the end of the day. I know, for James, for me, any athlete, like, your sport is your identity from such a young age. And, when you can get to that point, and it's something, I mean, James sounds like he's doing better with it than I am, but it's still like, I see myself as a soccer player first and a family man second in terms of my identity, just because, like, I haven't totally been able to transform that. Not that my family is not my priority, but in terms of my identity, like, I see myself as an athlete first and a family man second. It's just because it's how I've been wired since I was 10 years old, 8 years old, So, again, it's a constant battle, and things that I work on as well, of, not trying to take stresses and anxieties from the field home, maybe, as well as stuff from home to the field. And, it's an ongoing process of trying to find that balance. And I think it varies a bit throughout the year, depending on in season and off season. So.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like, for me, I've been James the baseball player since I was 12 years old,
Yeah.
So it's like so wrapped up in your identity. And
Yeah,
I think it all goes back to, like, what Ben was talking about earlier, is you only have so much bandwidth, and you got to
totally.
try, and you're always playing with those percentages and trying to, like, figure out, what percentages works for your life, where it's like 60% of you goes to your sport, 30 goes to your family, 10 goes to you, kind of thing. It's like you're
Yeah.
always kind of playing with those numbers, trying to be like, all right, what's the perfect fit for me to be able to be, like, the athlete that I want to be, the dad that I want to be, the partner that I want to be, and then, like, the person that I want to be, like, towards myself, kind of thing. Like, it's always just trying to figure out that balance. And I know, over your life, you kind of have different percentages, and you're a single guy,
sure.
or, with no family, you're early in your career. Yeah, you're probably closer to, like, 85% in your sport, because you can be, and a lot of the time it does take that, to get to where you want to go, because, like, I don't think neither Spencer or I are saying, like, getting to be a professional athlete is extremely hard, takes so much work. And there's also, like, luck involved, for sure, being in the right place at the right time, and a ton of hard work. I think I've always been the guy that's tried to, outwork everyone around me. I think that gives me confidence, when I'm out on the field. Like, I can look at the guy in the box and know, like, I know that I worked harder than you. And I think that was where I got my confidence for a long time. And as I'm getting older, now I'm kind of, like, realizing that it's more so for me now, it's like my mental approach is, I know, like, that's where I get my confidence. Like, I know that I can beat you because my mental approach is just better than yours, kind of thing. Like, I think I've got you beat mentally, when I'm on the mound.
It's interesting, and I don't mean to keep hammering this point home in the youth sports realm, but I mean, I do this exercise with new athletes, and it's essentially an audit of where are you allocating everything right now, because they want to add in more training and this and that. And I go, well, we need to figure out what we can remove first to add that in. So we have to do this audit, and I've done it with an ECNL girls soccer player. She's a Division I player now, but 96% of her time was during the week was allocated. 96, whether that was school, driving to practice, going to practice, driving home from practice, and then we averaged out a couple hours of homework per night. 96% of the time was done. That didn't include eating. That didn't include any sort of social time. And we're doing this to kids at ages that this stuff gets mapped down in their brain, and this is how they start living later in life. And everything that we experienced as younger athletes during those very formative years, puberty, etc., that stuff got mapped down. And so it's interesting now, like, you know, I have 2 young kids in diapers. My wife didn't know me as a soccer player. She doesn't understand the soccer stuff. I like that to a certain degree. But I still, as a 40-year-old human, have the emotional responses that I had as a younger pro athlete. I know how to tailor them a little bit, and I know what I can feel when they're coming, and I can manage it. But she doesn't have any perspective on why I react certain ways to certain things, why I need to pause and go step over here and manage some things that are bubbling up. When I was younger, it just fucking come out, you know. Like I still, and I think forever, I'm going to have to keep managing that stuff because it's just ingrained in my brain pathways, and you know, it takes conscious reps to try to change things. But it's interesting when you add in the family dynamic. It's especially, you know, in my situation when she doesn't quite understand what it is we did and what we go through. You have to try to be, again, vulnerable and share that with her, with knowing that she's not going to understand all the way.
Mm-hmm. So when you're mowing the front lawn and your line is off a little bit and you get fucking frustrated and you throw the lawnmower over and you talk shitty to yourself, she's like,
yeah,
whoa. And you're like, oh,
what happened to that guy?
Oh, that's right. That's 20.
You call the lawn the C word, and you're like,
yeah, that's 24-year-old Ben coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I'm out there with 6 beers and I don't have to think about it. Those are my 2 options.
Been out there 2 hours, the lawn hasn't even been mowed yet.
Yeah, what are you doing out here?
The lawn suffers.
No. It's tricky, and there's a messy middle transition part that everyone goes through when they're done playing, and I've now transitioned from playing to coaching, from coaching to a new business and new identity, to now I'm trying to go through it again, and then adding kids and a wife, and I'm like, where are the priorities? Where is this all going? And obviously kids and wife are number 1, but it's tough to put things at number 2 either, also when those things require everything. And so like internally I still go through these struggles. My brain's always going about, am I making enough money? Is business going the right way? Is this doing this? Is this in order? And it's tough to share that.
Yeah.
It's very tough to share that. Because there's the athlete identity that we all have. Unless you've had it, you understand it, you don't get it.
Yeah.
You just don't get it. So it's a tricky one. And I think that's going to be a lifelong thing to work on. Even as educated as I am in this stuff and refined as I am in this stuff, and I know how to teach people about it, I have to do it. I have to do it every day. And I don't know what the solve is besides educating younger and younger about, here's what you're getting into. Here's why this may not be the best thing right now. Here's some other options. But it's a tricky thing.
Again, I'm going to play devil's advocate, because I think whether you're a coach or a parent of an athlete or a fan or a young athlete listening to this, you're thinking, okay, so the example of the 96% of your day is accounted for. That doesn't include nourishment. We don't know her name. For her, maybe she's not as gifted talent-wise. Maybe the genetics are not as maybe not at the level where it's going to come easy for her. Maybe it is going to take 96% of her time to get to that level where she can start in college and then get looks. And so as from the outside looking in, it's like, well, if she wants to do that, if she wants to commit 96% of her time to that craft, to push that hard because she kind of needs to, in order to get to the level that she wants to, maybe the OCD that's being mapped into her brain is worth it. Like, maybe that's okay for her. Maybe she's aware of that and wants that. And she's had conversations with her family and like, this is what I want. I'm going to throw every single minute of my day into this. And maybe that's okay.
Yeah. I guess I'll go on this one. Do you have an answer for that, Ben?
You got
something queued up? All right.
I thought Ben was going to jump on that straight away.
Yeah. I was kind of like, silence. Okay. Ben, if you got something, man, let it rip.
Well, I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I want to hear your thoughts.
And then we'll go to me.
All right. I was going to say, I feel like that was me, dude. Like, I was like, I gave everything, to my sport. Like I was 96% baseball when I was a youth, and every thought went into it, and it was my choice. My parents didn't push me, to do it. It was like what I wanted to do, and I think like it took a long time for me to realize that's because that's where I got love from that, like I got recognition from being a good baseball player. I felt valuable or valued by being like a really good baseball player. And I think when you're young, you don't realize that's what's going on, like, this is my choice. This is what I want to do. I really love doing this. It's like, yeah, there's part of that is true for sure. But there's also a part that you don't quite understand yet, which is like, you're doing it because like, this is how you get love. This is how you get attention, and I think the earlier that we could teach that, so there's just like someone can just say, oh yeah, that is true. Okay, let me work on that a little bit. Like I'm still going to give a ton to my sport because it's what I love to do. But there's also like, I think a teachable moment and understanding of yourself that you just don't have at 15, 16, 17. Like you don't know yourself at that age, and you pay for it later. Like I've had to really work hard on that in my adult life. Just in recent years to deal with that. And I think what this is all about, what we're trying to do is set kids up for success and help them be in a better spot than we are. I think that's what it's all about. And so, we're not trying to tell somebody not to do that. If that's what you want to do, great. And you'll be probably, where we are at this point, dealing with it later in life. But I think that we are just trying to help people understand, what comes with it. And maybe it's a little bit easier for them, once they get to a certain point in their life, to deal with things, and find that balance. I think it's really hard to find that perfect balance like Ben's talking about in his life even now. And I think just hearing stuff that we're all sharing, maybe something will click or something will hit, and it'll help you with your percentages. Maybe you spend 5% more of your time with friends, and that's great. And maybe that works for somebody. And I think that's what this is all about.
Spence, any thoughts on that one?
Spencer, you are frozen again, man. When you come back, we can obviously edit this out. I don't know what's going on, but you are totally frozen. Can you hear us?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like every like 2 or 3 minutes it cuts out for 10 seconds. Okay. And then comes back.
Yeah. I don't know how or why. If it's possible to go like maybe sit on your router.
I could. I mean, it's literally. Do you see it right there?
Right there. Fuck. Yeah.
It's really close. I mean, I can go in the other room. We'll see if it'll solve it.
Yeah, it might, and it might be a platform issue.
A little fur ball here.
Yeah, if it happens again, so here's one tip. One tip is less motion on the video because that takes time to like render. So If you could just talk like this with your lips and not move very much, that would be totally natural and cool for us. But yeah, we'll just see where it goes. And again, it's going to be higher quality when it renders, and then I can do some editing and stuff. But you're already a little bit more clear.
Yeah.
If you want to riff off of James.
I like when James pours his coffee; it always gives a thumb down, a little bubble.
Thumbs up. Yeah, I think it's a super. I mean, speaking of balance, I mean, early days of training loads is a super tricky thing, right? Because I think when you're that age, in your mind, you're thinking, I want to give myself the best chance to play in college, to play professionally. You're not thinking to yourself like, oh, when I'm 25, my body's going to start to break down because I've been overtraining for the last 10 years, right? And so I think that's a really difficult thing to educate and encourage a kid to find that balance of training and of like longevity, right? Because maybe you are overtraining when you're 15 because you don't feel like you have maybe the skill set of your peers, who you're competing with for these opportunities. But at the same time, I think the durability piece of it is totally overlooked, and people are just rolling the dice that they're not going to get hurt and they're not going to break down in 5-10 years down the line. And so the gamble is that I'm just going to overtrain and I'm going to hope that my mind and my body hold up. And the combination of that is going to give me the best chance to play at a high level, right? Instead of looking at like the body and mind and your long-term performance of your career, can you maybe, pull back a little bit on your training load when you're in those years and, give your body and your mind a better, if we're talking about percentages, give your body and mind a better percentage that in a few years, if you can reach college, your body and mind are going to be in a better position to take you then to the next level. And then you get pro and your body and mind at 24, 25 are going to be in a better position to help you have a 10-year career, a 12-year career. So it is a very tough sell because I know, I think it's probably easy for a 10-year professional athlete to say like, maybe I could have toned it down a little bit when I was 15 and focused more on other things. But how do you tell a kid that, to them, the percentage of them being pro is 1%, 0.5%. So it is a very, very difficult, conversation and perspective to give a young athlete. So I totally, recognize that.
Yeah, it's tough. Like you're saying, like 0.5% of people are going to get to where we are, probably even less than that. Like being a 10-year pro, like the numbers are, super low. And even just to get pro at all, like, and even if you give it everything, if someone gives it 100%, like their chances are still low. Like there's people that are going to give it 100%, everything to their sport, and you're still not going to be good enough, to make it. And that's tough, and like you're saying, like, how do you tell somebody that like that's their dream, that they need to work less hard, because like it is so hard to get where we are. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I totally hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I think too, just the concept of it, of like, spending 86% of your time. Oh, I got to stop with the hand motion so I don't cut out.
Sit on your hands.
Goalkeeper.
I'm always ready. But yeah, like the concept of it, if you take a step back, is funny, right? You spend 90%, as in Ben's example, of your time towards this craft or dream that you have a 0.1% chance of achieving. But like, who are we to tell this 15-year-old that they shouldn't pour everything and more, even go over the top into it, right? It's a very tough conversation versus saying, hey, maybe you should invest more of that time into your friendships, into your family, into other crafts that can be a part of your identity forever, right? Like that's something that, as James and I have alluded to, our core identity since as long as you can remember is our sport that we're in, right? And I'm fortunate to have other great, friendships, relationships, some other hobbies, but it's a funny concept that you pour 90% of your time and capacity into something that in most cases is not going to work out for you. Like, that's just the reality of it, right? It's such a fine minority group of people that get to play professional sports, especially for a long time. And so it seems to, when you step back, it makes a lot of sense to say, hey, like, don't forget to, go play pickup with your friends. Don't forget to, go do stuff with your buddies, or, play other sports, or go hang out with boys or girls or whatever. It's like, don't forget to be a 15-year-old. You don't have to be a professional and have a professional lifestyle at 15, and I think that it's tough to sell that on a kid, though. Well, that's what they want their goal to be. That's their dream life. Right. So I see both sides of it. It's not an easy thing to explain to a kid.
And I love that. And I think that's what they think they want their life to be. Because we live in such a comparative culture, and they're seeing only the glorified moments of someone getting signed at age 15 or blah, blah, blah. And that's the parents as well. I think there's this constant anxiety and pressure that everyone's behind the 8 ball if they're not doing as much as player B over there or someone else over there, right? And I've spoken to clubs, soccer clubs, and asked them, why are you training 4 nights a week with 2 games, maybe 3 games on the weekend? That's not okay for them. Like, physically that's not, your coaches don't love it. And they straight up say, well, that's because that club over there does it, and that club over there does it. So, like, it's this culture that's evolved on misinformation and just comparing, oh, they're doing it that way, so we should do it that way, with no evidence or science about why you're doing that shit in the first place. I mean, again, if you guys want to go back to the realistic expectations game, I mean, the Premier League has, I've said this on the last one, less than 5,000 ever players in 30 years existence. How many humans have been on the planet?
Yeah. And you think it's bad here in terms of like
so
kids
small.
going
if you're on a youth sports team in soccer that kind of caters to putting kids into college, so a top level one, it's 7% of those kids. If you're on that high level of a team, that's just to get into a college. And then that's even smaller to get to pro. And then even what's pro mean now? So if you're a minor league baseball player, how much money are you making?
Nothing.
I made $500 a month.
Yeah, you're making less than minimum wage. Yeah.
Then I made $550, and that's before taxes, right? And I didn't care. And then I made MLS, and I made $34K, and that was it. Then it was gone. So now salaries are a little bit different, right? Especially in Major League Soccer. Okay, now you're making $80K a year. Great. You're sacrificing college to do that. You're sacrificing this and that to do that. And I don't know about you guys, but I just haven't met a well-adjusted former pro athlete. Everyone's got shit. Even if they were successful, they still have stuff after the fact. And I do this with MLS players that have had 15-plus year careers that have made money and do all that stuff. Still stuff going on here that they were dealing with. Still limping around. Unless they're the few that are narcissistic and only live in that world.
So yeah, I think it's very, like, I'll chime in quick. I think it's,
no, go ahead.
To your point, like, it's very related to how kids are operating at 15, and it's the identity piece that at that age they absorb, and it continues on to 35, 40, when guys do transition away from sports, is if they haven't taken time, like what James has talked about, what he's worked on a lot the last 5-6 years of diversifying your identity a little bit, of between your family, between your hobbies, like, it will be a massive hole to fill when that day comes, whether that day comes at 18, at 22, at 27, at 37, whenever you transition away from that sport, it will leave a massive hole in your life. And that day hasn't come yet for James or I, but I guarantee you, even as two guys who are very conscious of this type of stuff, who work, on, finding balance in soccer, in baseball, and in life, it's going to be a tough day then, even for us. So, the more awareness, the more that we can encourage guys, girls, to have eggs in other baskets outside of sport, regardless of what level you're at, it's only going to set you up post playing, for a better, healthier transition and a healthier life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we normalize that at younger and younger ages. I mean, during puberty, you're looking for the support of your family. When you move on from there, it transitions to the support of your social networks and your friends, and then your identity is all tied up in that stuff. If you normalize this, I would argue that based off the way the environment is now, with how much these kids train, which is more than Spencer trains at Chicago Fire, you need to get this other stuff in your life to recharge and recover from what you're doing. It's going to help your performance to be able to switch off and do other stuff, to let your brain rest from this stuff, emotionally step away. It's going to help that thing on the field. And that's where I think the messaging really needs to be clear. Yeah, there's a problem with how the whole system's set up, but this stuff is going to actually help you on the field if you embrace it the right way.
It's interesting. Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
Go ahead. No, you're good.
I was just going to say it's interesting. Like maybe there's a percentage that's like it's not 100%. Like maybe like the max percentage that you can give to your sport is 80%, 75%. Because like we said, not everybody's going to make it, and maybe like if you're going to make it, you're going to make it kind of thing. Like if you're good enough, you're going to be good enough at 75%, that extra 25% isn't going to make a difference kind of thing. Like maybe there is a different like max out, kind of thing. Like once you're giving 75%, like if you're going to make it, you're going to make it. If you're not, you're not. Any percentage point above that is not going to make a difference. And I think like I think that could be true, like that there's like, you take two kids, one kid gives it 100%, one kid gives it 80%, and it's not going to change anything. Either you're good enough, you're going to be good enough to make it, or you're not. No matter how much you go over that 75%. Does that make sense? I don't know. It made sense in my head, but
have you guys heard of the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck?
Yes.
Yeah. I totally a believer in that being true. And it's your exact point, James. But like the amount of guys that I've played with who like kind of like soccer, but not really, or like don't really care if they lose in training or this or that. And they just have like the utmost composure and quality, like on the ball. It's crazy, man. Like you look at, it's like Lionel Messi. It's like on the field, not that he doesn't care, but like this guy's just walking around everywhere. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or like in MLS, Lucho Acosta was like one of, if not the best players the last few leagues. It's like these guys, it's just like, it's literally a walk in the park for them, because it's this like theory of, if you don't try like overly hard, if you just like give enough, that like, to your point, James, it's like maybe it is what it will be,
Yeah. Like if it's meant to be, it'll be kind of thing, like I think that there's just like some people that can do it, and there's others that can't, and I think that like you want to be able to set yourself up, like kind of like another point we're talking about is like, you want to have some other things in your life, because when it does end, you're not just a puddle. Because if you give it 100% and you give nothing else to any other part of your life, and it comes to an end, you're going to be a mess, like at least like if you're giving 75%, you've got another 25% to fall back on when this thing falls apart, and it's probably going to fall apart, because like we said, the percentages are so low that you're going to be a professional athlete. And like, even when I stop next year, the year after, something like that, like I'm going to have a huge hole in my life, and I'm going to be filling, that hole up. But I've learned to kind of increase the percentage of things that are away from baseball for me. So hopefully that fall won't be as hard, but like we're all going to have a fall. You just don't want it to be from Everest,
Yeah. And you're equipping yourself with skills on how to cope with it right now. You're
Right.
being proactive. You're getting prepared there. I mean, if you had to like make this a diagram, and you had this big continuum, like way over here is going to be this like tiny sliver of people who made it, and then this big pile underneath them are these people that are just kind of like fine with things, and then now we're getting this bigger increasing thing over here called stress, anxiety, depression, suicide that keeps popping up now, all to go for this little tiny fucking thing over here that might not actually be worth it at the end of the day.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the big problem that we're coming up against now too, because this stuff down here is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and problems are showing up because we're going earlier and earlier and earlier and doing more and more and more.
Yeah.
That's the thing we're fighting against.
One thing that I think about is the guys and gals that still see it as a game. They're playing. They're out there. Mm-hmm. They're not taking it too seriously. They're expressing themselves. They're being creative. They're fucking around. And, I think of Brazilian soccer players in this way a lot, right? I watched a clip from...
Well, not anymore.
Yeah, probably not anymore. Right. Like, Carlo Ancelotti wrote a book. He coached Real Madrid. And there was some anecdote from his book where he was saying his team, when they were winning everything, was training 25% less than the rest of European top division teams. And then the board came together and they were like, hey, listen, Carlo, like, you're not training enough. And he's like, this is working. Shut up. And so he bent to the will of the board, started training more, and immediately they started losing. It's like, and I think there's something to that. But going back to this idea that like play and fun and enthusiasm, like that's a life skill. That's not just a way to excel in your sport and to express yourself, acquiring a new pitch or, finding a new way to strike the ball or to throw the ball to the wings, out of the back from a goalkeeper. If you can find new ways to have fun and explore, that immediately translates to your life. If you can have joy and enthusiasm for your sport, you can have joy and enthusiasm for your after sport career. And that, because you are so focused, I think for really high level athletes, because you're so focused on your sport, you don't get to learn those sorts of skills outside of that sport. You don't have that sense of play with your friends. You don't have that sense of play with your family. You don't have that sort of outlet for that creative expression. Maybe you love to paint, or maybe you are really good at Call of Duty. Like, go have fun with that stuff, because that is immediately going to translate to giving you a higher quality of life later on down the road,
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you're playing a game, not playing a job, right? And that's a quote that I think the Texas baseball coach said. I mean, that's a big distinction too, because I said it last time. Some of these coaches talk about how much they played growing up. They played every day, and the key word is what we're talking about right now. You're playing, not training. Like, they're going out and doing it on their own. They want to do that. It's giving them juice. Their brains are in a different state. They're not training like the kids are. The kids are like regimented, trying to refine skills. I need to do this, and they're being told what to do. It's choreographed. They're not thinking freely when they're doing it. They're just trying to cookie cutter people into a system to promote or produce whatever kind of pro player they can. It's no longer the play mode. It's just this work mode. And they don't need work. They need, life's already too busy. It's already too crazy. The world's crazy right now, and there's nothing we can do about it at this point. So the sporting environment better be playing, because the kids need that. They need the release. In my opinion.
We could go for hours and hours, fellas. We could this
fuckers.
This is. I think that, again, within the context of what we're doing here is having an open dialogue about it, to throw around some ideas, to challenge some norms, to speak, especially, obviously, James and you, Spencer, talking about some of the harsh realities of playing professional sports, and the way that we kind of, I think, as a society of sports fans across the board, all four of us are, most people in America are, they love sports. We got to have more open conversations around topics like this, so that it can soften some of the edges of high performance, so that it can be more integrated into people's lives, so that we don't glorify grinding your bones to dust as a kid, so that coaches can be a part of this conversation and learn a thing or two, And luckily, it's not an easy solve. There's going to be lots of conversations that are going to need to happen like this over the course of this podcast and hopefully other podcasts where people can explore some of these ideas, because I think they're really worth having. Maybe as we take this thing home, Ben just fell off the planet there. He just fell off the side of the earth. See you, Ben. I'll probably pop back in. Spencer, any sort of closing thoughts or ideas that you have, and any wisdom that you think would be useful to share with people around being an athlete or just being a well-rounded person? Something, your chance to kind of share a bit of wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway, again, if speaking mostly towards young athletes, is it's a very hard thing to do, but to try to assess your capacity. Where is your time and your energy going towards? And in regards to your sport, are you overworking it? I think that maybe talking with coaches, talking with peers, it's a very hard, truthful answer to come across. But if you're able to take a step back and look at, okay, am I overdoing it? Am I underdoing it? And really try to answer that question honestly and make sure that you're not overdoing it and spending, less time with your friends, being a kid, playing other sports, doing school activities, those sorts of things. So I know it's a very easy thing to put all your eggs in one basket and think I'm going to just give it my all and try to be this 10-year all-star pro athlete. But, is the juice worth the squeeze? That's something that each individual is going to have to figure out. And I'm a big believer in, as James said, don't forget to be a kid. Don't forget to be a friend, be a classmate, whatever that looks like. Pro sports are great, but there's a lot more to life. And, I just hope for kids to not forget about that. So.
Parting thoughts, James or Ben?
You got anything, Ben?
Yeah, I just hope I'm not getting too ranty when I get going. Sorry.
Doesn't seem that way. No, man, not at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead, James.
Oh, I was going to say, I thought that Spencer said it great. Like everything he was saying really kind of nailed it. I think that, what we're doing here is just trying to help people understand what it's like to be where we are and share our experiences, and hopefully just impart on kids, parents, that it's important to have other things in your life as well. And it's all about balance, and we realize that it's hard to know where those lines are and how much to give and stuff like that. But remember that I think just perspective of you only get to go through life one time, and just to make sure you're experiencing everything as you're going through it. It is important.
Yeah, I think that's good too. And it's, if you look at the guys that are in this room, you have two current players, lots of years under their belt. Sean was a college athlete. I was a washout pro. So that there is a lot of different versions of wisdom, experience, and the same messaging across the board is trying to manufacture whatever balance you can within the construct that you're in, right? And it's for your own wellness. It's for your own well-being. It's for what's going to come after the fact. And if you learn how to do it correctly and you embrace it, it actually will help your craft. And it might take you a couple steps further than you think you're going to go anyway. So there's really a no-lose situation in embracing this version of life, because it's what's required now.
Well said. Well said. Spennis, Big Maple, Drago, good stuff today, fellas.
Did we get the spend 15 joke?
Wait, you're not number 15, are you, Spencer?
No.
No.
Hey, Why?
Because kids used to draw pen 15, which is penis.
No, 18. That was Stephen Fung gave me that name when I was at UW. Spinus.
Spinus.
Stephen Fung.
That's good. That's good.
That's
Yes.
great.
Shout out Fung.
Yeah.
All right,
That's
fellas.
awesome. Do it.
Do it. Do it.
I need you to flush my toilets anyway, man. They haven't been flushed in like probably 6 months. That's the
Exploring
weirdest.
each one.
That's the weirdest thing, man, is like having my house there and like having no clue what's going on over there. Like,
I'm in it.
yeah, Ben comes
It's-
by like once in a blue moon, man, but it's like,
It's
you know,
very. It's still very clean and tidy.
well, that's good. I worry about like, stuff going on there.
Some
And
mold growing in the basement
yeah,
or some funk in the
you
garage.
just never know. You can only see so much on the security cameras, like I got a message from our landscaper saying like, oh, like we came by and it seems like, you've got stuff dying in your yard, like your water might not be working or on. And
Yeah, there was no battery in it, so I switched it to run, and then obviously that didn't work because I had no juice. So
yeah,
Of all the
so,
people to check in on your place, you chose Ben. Like, what are you thinking?
dude,
you know what's so
yeah,
funny?
I mean, it's
You don't know anybody else?
well,
You know
when you
what,
live places like without family, like, I don't have a lot of family there. If it was my dad was like in town, and then like I'd have him go by, but he's 2.5, 3 hours away, so they don't really go by at all.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking
Yeah.
about James's air filters, and I'm not thinking about my air filters at home. You know what I mean? Like
Change mine every four months, but you don't change your own.
I'm on it, and yeah, Alex is like, oh, here's some 9 volts. Fuck yeah.
Sitting at home thinking about James's Japanese maple in his backyard.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, at some point, you
Man.
got to look at what the product is, and I'm looking at this Clyde Hill home versus my Renton home, and I'm like, yeah, that one needs it.
Just as long as your neighbors, don't get pissed off at you. I'm sure you got some pieces of work there in Clyde Hill. Like, oh, James is that fucking Paxton guy, dude. His lawn is half an inch too tall. This is bullshit.
Yeah, it looks like crap. Someone broke into my mailbox while I was gone, dude. Like our neighbor came by and said, "Hey, it looks like your mailbox is like kind of like pried open. Someone got into your mailbox." And I was like, "Oh, great! Like, all right." Luckily, my parents were going by, so they locked it back up for me. But yeah, it's crazy.
It's a weird neighborhood because you have a bunch of mega homes too that have no one in it because some Asian person bought it, and so you'll have like a super nice house with the yard going to shit that's got Christmas decorations up still, and like it's a bizarre place. They're building a lot though right now, dude. Like right across the street, they ripped down a house and they're building a new one.
Yeah, I remember before we left, they ripped that place down. They were starting to build.
This MN Custom Homes guys just got signs up everywhere here, so he must be killing it.
Yeah. Well, there needs to be more homes built, kind of like all over the place. So it's good they're building homes.
That's one way to look at it.
Yeah, wasn't that area like wasn't Bellevue a couple years ago was like the highest concentration of cranes in the world was in Bellevue because of all the building that's going up because that zip code is so desirable for people.
Oh wow, I had no idea.
This
That's
Amazon
crazy.
money, Bill Gates, is just kind of down the hill from you. Like,
Yep.
Well, I think what 1%er to be a 1%er nationwide, your income needs to be about 400K. To be a 1%er in Bellevue, it's like 7 million.
sure, yeah,
Damn.
yeah.
That's wild.
It's hard.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah.
So when do you pitch next, James?
I pitch on Friday. Originally it was gonna be Saturday, but they switched me to Friday. I'm pitching Friday in Detroit. We're in Philly right now. So, yep.
In Detroit. Do you see Boyd got picked up by Cleveland? Did I tell you that?
Dude, yeah, I texted him, man. That was awesome. Super pumped for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, super pumped.
$3 million.
Yeah, that's great, man. I know that he's it's just a 1 year, and then he'll head back into free agency this off season. But that'll be awesome just to get his foot in the door, kind of show that he's healthy again. I mean, I know he's been through it, man, and I know what it's like to be like hurt that much and like come back and then not really be back and then have to go on the aisle again. And man, it's a tough place to be, like mentally. But I'm super excited for him that he's knocking on the door of being back and back out there doing his thing.
Yeah,
That'll be great.
totally.
Yeah,
Get Marco there
awesome.
too.
Yeah, Marco's getting close too. It'll be fun. Be really fun.
Sounders won 3 in a row.
Ooh, baby.
Sounders
They're doing it again.
doing it.
Just put
They know
some.
They know how to
wins
play the
together.
long game.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. I feel like it's a culture thing and it's a Schmetzer thing. Like, it's a long season, guys. Like, 'cause we know what to do. We've been through this before. Keep trudging through.
Mm-hmm.
James, have you met James Riley?
No, who's that?
He was my old Sounders teammate. He's the head coach of Ballard. He works with Seth quite a bit.
Okay.
He's
Cool.
he's like he did the forward in the book that they have.
All right. Right on.
Are we recording?
Yeah.
Yeah. We can patch it all together, though. We don't have to take all this stuff, I guess, huh?
Yeah, we can parse it out.
Yeah. I get to go on All-Star break after Detroit, heading off to Wisconsin to go to a lake with the fam for a few days. So that'll be cool.
Nice.
Talking of downtime. I get to take a little bit of downtime and recharge a little bit. So that'll be cool.
Taking fishing poles, you taking jet skis, doing the whole. Got some toys to take with you.
I think we're gonna rent a boat. Like I don't have anything of my own out there. But yeah, we're just gonna probably rent a boat. Kate, my wife's family's all gonna kind of be there and stuff. So it'll be a good time.
I don't know much about boats, but I know that I love pontoon boats. I think that's the way to go.
Oh, the party boats, man.
Dude, flat
Yeah.
surface, 10 people comfortably. You can tug a inner tube behind it just fine. Like that. I think that's the way to go.
You can get like pretty high powered ones now too, I think.
Yeah.
I was just talking to somebody the other day about this because I was like, man, next summer I might be lake lifing it, man. Like I might be done. And I was talking about, they're like, what are you going to do? I was like, oh, I'm going to be, on the boat. And they're saying, what kind of boat are you going to get? And I was originally thinking like a deck boat, which is kind of like it's like a speed boat, but a bigger one, so there is some space to just kind of hang out. But then they were saying the pontoons, some of them now actually have like pretty like high power motors. So you can pull tubes pretty good and stuff now. So I don't know. We'll see.